There's so many stories on the internet about traders going from working at supermarkets or as taxi drivers or tradesmen and turning to crypto and becoming a millionaire or multimillionaire in just one cycle. So what I thought I would do in this video is talk to you about the reality of going from very little to very much in just 1 year as a trader. It's time to break down the reality of the trader's journey. We're going to do the math to work out together if these stories can legitimately be true, or are they designed to sell you on a dream? And if that's the case, let's also unravel the reality of making a living from trading so that you can actually make a non-biased and informed decision about whether or not trading is actually for you. And not only that, be able to realistically give you what you're dreaming of in the time frame you're trying to get it. Because sometimes I find that these stories are so inflated that if you're not personally seeing the same success as fast as the stories that you've been told, it makes you feel like a failure. But you're not actually failing. Maybe you're just too early. So let me just first tell you about my personal journey into crypto. The first thing I ever did when I very first got into crypto was I just put a simple $100 into Bitcoin. Now, that I would assume is how most people's journey starts. Now it might be a little bit different. Most people's first step into crypto now is buying something that they've heard on social media. So it's not always Bitcoin, but most people will put their first foot in by just dabbling a little bit with a small amount of money that is not really significant to them and that they feel okay to lose. So whether it's Bitcoin or not, the first step is usually just putting a small amount of money into something just to get it into the crypto system to understand how it all works. Now, moving on from that, my second step, once I had the taste of it and I understand how it all worked, I got fairly excited about it and I started to join crypto trading groups on Facebook. And there was a lot of people in there that were talking about altcoins. Now, I knew nothing about altcoins, but looked like people were making money. So whatever people were mentioning in Facebook groups, I was buying. And so after I'd put that initial $100 in, I decided to then get my feet a little bit wet by going into altcoins. So the next thing I did was I put $400 and I found an online exchange at the time. It was in Australia. It was called CoinSpot. Still exists today, but back then it was very, very basic and you couldn't look at charts. You couldn't pick the price to buy. You would just see the altcoin, decide how much money you wanted to spend, and you would just get however much. So I didn't really know how to track whether I was making money or not, other than logging into that and seeing if my overall balance was greater than the last time I logged in. And so over time, I actually turned that $400 into $4,000. So I was completely wrapped. That was a 10x on my money at the time. That covered all of my monthly living expenses. And that had me hooked. You know, it felt so easy. Little did I know we were right in the peak of alt season of that cycle. Now, I didn't know this because I didn't know that crypto had cycles. I just saw it going up and didn't realize I was right in the middle of the hype phase. But lucky for me, I made some money. And once it turned into that amount, my thought was, oh my goodness, with this thing, I can pay all of my monthly living expenses. So that was enough to get me hooked. But I ended up cashing out of that just because life was busy. It just happened to turn out that very soon after that, the bear market of that cycle started and I was seeing things completely crash. But nevertheless, that experience was the life-changing moment for me, just learning how you can take some money and turn it into an extreme amount of money. So I left crypto because I was too busy, not because I wanted to get out of it, but I decided to come back and learn properly. So from this step here, I cashed out and I actually got to take profit. Then I came back and I decided I'm going to learn this properly because I really did enjoy it. And I decided that I was going to commit $1,000 to my education. So I wasn't expecting to make anything from it, but I wanted to learn it properly. And by this time, actually, leverage trading had become a thing. So prior to this, it was only spot. And then when I decided to return, leverage trading was basically just invented by an exchange called BitMEX. And so I put $1,000 in as what I call my apprenticeship money, and I blew it all. So I'm telling you this story because along the way in this story, you're going to be at one of these points yourself. It's either going to be a point that I've already mentioned or one I'm about to mention. And as I take you through this, I want you to think about where you are in your journey and just remember it, because it's going to become relevant later. So after losing it, I'm now down basically my education money. It's gone. And I decided from there that I was going to put in another $1,000 and I was going to learn properly. Now, by this time, Binance was a massive exchange and it was much better and much easier to trade on. So I moved over there and I traded for a while. And this was whilst I was living in Australia. And then all of a sudden, Binance removes leverage. And people in Australia were like, we can't trade on that anymore. We were all so used to it. We were majorly in love with it. But I decided to just go on the hunt and see if I could find another exchange. And long story short, I ended up finding OKX. Now, I hadn't heard of this exchange before, but all of the exchanges that I was researching, it had all of the features that I wanted, so I decided I'm going to move over there. So after I moved to OKX, I continued trading over there. And like this all happened over a space of a couple of years, right? It wasn't a short journey. But whilst I was juggling being a business owner and also working in the business and a mom and lots of other things, life just started to get bad. Like other things happened in my life and it just wasn't great. And my mindset was not in a good place. And my business was basically it just blew up. So that sent me to a really dark place. And I was trying to trade to make the money that I wasn't making from my business anymore. And I was trading from a place of desperation. And that's just not a good idea. So long story short, whatever I had in my accounts, I blew that up again and was now in a state where I needed to make money from trading. Like it wasn't just a hobby anymore. The way that I was making my income had just blown up, and my last resort was to make money from trading, and now I've just blown that account as well. I was devastated because it really was my only hope. And I remember at the time I was crying on the phone to my friend and I was telling her, like, if I just had money, I know I can make more money. And the reason why I had that mindset was because of this right here, right? This time where I turned 400 into 4,000, I was just super focused on that. Even though I had just blown everything, I knew that there was a time in life where I actually got a really, really good result. And so I just wanted to get that back again. So from there, in that conversation with my friend, she let me borrow $600. And so that was the amount of money that I had to be able to start again. And this time, because I had now blown 2 accounts essentially, I had to take it super, super seriously. Number one, I have never borrowed money in my life. So that was a really, really humbling moment for me. And I had gone from being this really successful businesswoman to now having to borrow money from a friend. And it was embarrassing to me. It's a different mindset when you lose your own money to losing someone else's money. So I just didn't want to do stupid things with it, because as soon as I borrowed it, my number one goal became to pay it back. And I was only going to be able to pay it back if I didn't do stupid things. So yeah, I had to go back in with the education that I had to date, with the results that I had to date, the experiences I had to date. I had to go back in. I had to basically start again. Now, like I said to you, throughout this story, you're going to realize where you are in your trading journey. And if this is you, like if you're at this point where you've blown your account multiple times, but you don't want to give up because you really do believe that crypto trading is something that you want to make money from one day, then I'm telling you this because I want you to know that it's not shameful to start small or to fail. Everybody that you admire, that you watch on the internet, they've all been through this story that I'm telling you. Like, this is not unique to me. This is the typical trader's journey, and you're just somewhere in this journey, and we've all been there. It's just not everybody admits it. So if you're in this stage, You're not behind, you're just in chapter 1. So I got over all of that and I decided that I was going to pull myself together and I was going to do this properly with proper risk management, sticking to my rules, having patience and trying to focus on risk reward and win rate over the dollar amount wins per trade, all the things that you're supposed to do. I decided that's it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to listen to people who say this is what you've got to get out of your mind. And soon after that, borrowing that $600, I turned that into $1,000. Now, this started to give me hope. And so it was at this stage right here that I decided to set myself a challenge. This was the challenge. I now, at this point, had a $1,000 account. My challenge to myself was that I was going to turn this into $10,000. Now, I decided I was going to do this following proper rules, proper risk management, have my own trading rules. I was not going to add any more money into my trading account should I somehow come into money, because I was still not in the greatest financial situation, but I was not going to add anything to my account. I needed to prove to myself that I could turn 1,000 into 10,000 just from trading alone. Now, that process, that took me quite a long time. I had to set a rule for myself, a very important rule of no more than 2 losses in a row. If I got 2 losses in a row, I had to take 24 hours off the chart. Now, because I was in such a mission to become a really good trader, it meant that I didn't want to take a day off. So that rule was a very, very good rule for me, because I knew in the back of my mind that if I didn't follow my rules and I had 2 losses in a row, then I wasn't going to be able to trade the next day. And I didn't want that. So it made me be really, really careful. And so eventually I hit that 10K goal. And then once I got to that 10K goal, I decided to set a new goal. And now I want to go from 10,000 to 50,000. And at the time, I actually needed this 50,000. It was important to me. And again, going through not a great time in life, and I needed $50,000 for a reason. And I was trying to get it elsewhere. And then one of my friends who knew me really well just said, Annie, the money's on the screen. And it was so ridiculously logical that I was like, yeah, if I need 50,000, I just have to trade better. So that took me some time. It wasn't as hard as going from 1 to 10, because 1 to 10 was the mental challenge and the learning to trust my analysis and control my emotion. When I tried to go from 10 to 50, it's only one other thing that changes. Because by that stage, your rules are set. So you should know what you're doing, because if you don't, you're not going to get from 1 to 10, right? So 1 to 10 is where you set your rules, you learn your lessons, you make the mistakes, you do all of that stuff. And then there's only one more mental challenge that will come when your account grows beyond the 10, because every new milestone in your trading account balance brings a new challenge. So on the way from 10 to 50, the only challenge I had was getting over trading with bigger size. And that can scare you, because even though you've gotten yourself used to only thinking about percentage gains and losses, there are times that you can't help but look at the dollar value. And if your account is bigger, the dollar value of your losses is also going to be bigger. So even though that equates to 1%, you're human and you're still going to think about it like, that's a lot of money to lose, especially if you're still in a state where, 50 grand is a lot of money. Hey, future Annie jumping in again. Every time I'm sitting here editing videos, they take so long, by the way, like so long. But as I'm editing them, I remember things that I should have put in. So I'm back again. I want to just tell you this story really quickly, because it's funny, but it's not funny, but it's a good lesson. And everybody goes through it. And I just want to be real about the real journey. So on that journey, when I was doing 10 to 50, and I thought I got my rules down, I'm good. I'm not breaking things now, I'm good. I got into this stage where Bitcoin was just ranging in a $3,000 range for a long time. I'm talking 6 months. And it just could never break down. It never broke up. It was just in this $3,000 range for months and months and months. And we were all so frustrated. And I thought in that time, I've got this grand plan and I'm the smartest human on the planet. And I decided, because at the time I had a friend who
was trading as well, and she really believed in cross leverage. Now, I had always been told cross leverage was really dangerous, stay away from it, and so I stayed away from it. But she became this huge advocate for it. She thought it was epic, and so for some reason, I decided to try it. And I had this genius plan that I'm like, well, because it's in this 3K range. At the bottom, I'm just going to long. At the top, I'm just going to short, like simple, right? So it gets to the top, and I open a short position using cross leverage with no stop loss, because that's what she told me was her strategy, and it always works out. And the cross leverage allows you to have, anyway, it's dumb, right? Moral story is dumb. But of course, the universe is going to teach me a lesson. And the second I open that short position, that's the time, of course, that Bitcoin decides it's going to break out of its 6-month 3K range. So it breaks out and it just keeps going. Now, it ended up being the start of the bull market, but I didn't know that. And so it's breaking out and it's going higher and higher, and it starts going parabolic, and it's getting close to my liquidation. And it was so much money that I didn't want to lose it. So I thought, okay, just put more money in. So I go and I put more money in to like move my liquidation point further away, and it just keeps going. And by the time, now this was a 10K account at the time, so by the time I added like 3 or 4 times, it was now like $50,000, and I was 40K in loss. So I was very, very close to liquidating the entire thing. And then eventually it comes back, and I was like seeing that. So I was sitting in unrealized 40K loss, and then it goes down to like 30, 20, whatever. And I'm thinking, oh, thank God it's coming back now. But what I didn't know was it was actually just the retest before it was going to take off parabolic again. And so it comes all the way down. So my unrealized loss went from 40K, got it down to 3K. And then I tell myself the story that, oh, well, if it's come down this far, I'll be able to get back to break even and get out with no loss. All the stuff that I talk about on this channel, when I tell you how the market maker traps you, that is how I was trapped. I'm thinking, okay, $3,000, it'll come down to 0. I'll be fine. No, it doesn't. Because why? The market maker knows that he keeps you trapped. So from 3K, it goes up again. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's taking off. And now it ends up being something like, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a sickening amount of money for me. It was like 13 to 15K that I decided to cut it, because I just knew it was heading back to the 40K unrealized loss, and I just couldn't get back there again. And so I ended up having to cut it instead of taking the $3,000 loss and getting out, with as little loss as possible. Because of my stubbornness, I held it, and I ended up with like an 18K loss. So we all go through it. It's all part of the lessons, but that is my lesson on cross leverage, adding to bad positions and not recognizing and cutting your trade early when something different happens. Okay, let's go back.
So how did I deal with that challenge of having a bigger account? I had to train my eyes not to look in the direction of the dollar value of my profits or losses, and only focus on the percentage. It was hard. It was really, really hard, but it actually was a really good thing, because it really allowed me to detach from my emotional connection to money. Anyway, eventually I got there. I got from the 10 to the 50,000. And by that stage, a lot have happened. My life had improved significantly. So I decided at that point that I was now going to add an additional $50,000 to my trading account. So that left me with now a 100K account. But the thing was, I didn't do this until I had proven to myself that I can actually turn some money into more money. I only added it at the right time, that I'd proved to myself that I can follow rules, I can be profitable over time, and I can manage my emotions. So 1K to 50K was where that part happened. So now that I had a 100K account, I was happy. I didn't really need more than that. And later in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly why. So make sure you stick with me because I think it's going to really change your perspective on how big your account needs to be. But up until this point of getting to a 100K trading account, my goal was to compound always, right? Because I was trying to build up to a size that I could live off the profits from trading. But once I got there, my goals now changed to maintaining and whatever was over that, withdrawing the profits so that I could live. Where I'm at today, dollar-wise, it's not really relevant, but the journey from 1,000 to 100,000 is what I really want you to focus on for this video. The trader version of me that exists today, it didn't just appear. It was built trade by trade, lesson by lesson, failure by failure, over a really long period of time. So let's now talk about the influencers who say they turned 500 into $1 million in one bull market. And let's really break down the math behind that. They say that a good trader on average will grow their overall account by 10% per month. That's a good trader. So let's take this $500 example that I gave earlier and let's work this out now. So your initial investment is $500. That's what you put into your trading account. And we're going to put the interest rate at 10% per month. Now, we said the example was 500 to 1 million in a bull market. And a bull market is usually about a year's time. So let's just put it as 1 year to get just a bit of an idea. Okay, so that's our calculation. We start with 500. We're able to magically compound from day one, 10%. Account growth monthly over the course of 1 year. Our future investment value is $1,500. Not bad, but it's not $1 million. So let's flip that now. Let's go from 500 to $1 million in 12 months. And let's try to work out what monthly growth you'd need to get to $1 million from only 500. Let's try and throw this in at 30% and see what happens. We're only at 11,000 if we're doing a 30% account growth month on month over 12 months. That ain't going to cut it. Let's try 60. We're sitting at 140,000, just over that, still not enough. Let's try 80. We're looking better. We're now at about nearly 600,000, not $1 million. So we have to keep going. Let's try 89. And there you have it. So in order for you to be able to turn $500 into $1 million in one bull market, you need to be able to grow your account by 89% every month for a minimum 12 months. Guys, that is mathematically impossible while practicing real risk management. And even if you didn't, even if you were just a complete gambler, the chances of that happening to you is probably 1 in a trillion. That is not the norm. And I can't see any way possible that that is the reality for anyone in crypto. So let's just pack away that idea, okay? Let's go back to the whiteboard. And this time I want to explain to you what I have called the financial freedom formula. Now, the question you need to ask yourself here is, what do you actually really need? So I'm going to come back to you for a second. What do you actually really need in order for you to be able to live off trading or just to live comfortably? Let's just say, for the sake of being able to do realistic math, and probably wherever you are in the world, obviously it's going to cost you a different amount for you to live monthly. But let's just go with a flat $10,000 per month to be able to pay all your bills, to pay for emergency expenses, to be able to save a little bit for holidays and whatnot. So we've decided $10,000 a month is what I need to live comfortably. Now let's just go back to what we said before, where we've decided that a good trader can grow their account by 10% per month. Okay, so that is our formula. If your goal is to make 10K per month and that 10K equals a 10% account growth, then that means that you need to have a 100K trading account, because 10% of 100K is 10K. So if you want to live off trading, you have to grow your account over time to $100,000. Would your life be a little bit better than what it is now if you were able to pull out $10,000 a month from the market whilst also maintaining a 100K trading account? If the answer is yes, then you don't need to aim for a multi-million-dollar trading account size and overwhelm yourself that you're so far behind because of some random influencer on the internet flashing a huge lifestyle. We've established that that's not reality, right? So what you really should be doing is aiming for mastery. You got to get good first, the 1K to 50K challenge, then scale from there. So if that hasn't sunk in, let's go deeper. Let's break it down in trade sizes. If you are risking 1% of your account per trade, it means that you're risking $1,000 per trade, right? Because 1% of a $100,000 account is $1,000. So that means if your goal is to make 10 grand a month and you're risking 1,000 per trade, then in order for you to hit your goal, you need to have one 10-to-1 risk to reward trade per month. Now, how realistic is that? You know, a 10-to-1 risk to reward trade, it's not impossible, and you probably could get it once a month, not every month. It's pretty hard. The market, it doesn't usually give us that huge a risk reward on a regular basis. So it's going to be a bit more of a luck thing. Okay, so that's not really all that realistic. So let's try another option. You can aim for 2 5-to-1 risk to reward trades per month, because they're going to give you 5% each if you're risking 1% per trade, and that's times 2, so that equals 10%. So how realistic is that now? It's a lot easier than a 10-to-1, not going to lie to you. Like, you probably could get 2 5-to-1 risk to reward trades per month. It's still going to be difficult. So let's try another one. How about instead of that, we're going to aim for 4 2.5-to-1 risk to reward trades, which means that you're making 2.5% per trade over 4 trades, which equals also 10%. Now, when you break that one down, is that achievable? That's so easily achievable. A 2.5-to-1 risk to reward 4 times a month, that basically is once a week. Could you do that? You could do that all day, every day. Now, look, granted, you're not going to win every trade. So you're going to have losses, you're going to have wins. What we're really trying to work out here, because there's so many variables to that you can't really just put it down as an example, but what we're really trying to say is that if you were to get those 4, you're done for the month. And then whatever you do with the rest of your time is your choice. You have the space to lose before you win as well. Wait, I did that wrong. Wait, I have to fix this because of my perfectionist issues. I wrote 2.51. That's not right. Just, I don't want to confuse you. 2.5-to-1, just so we're clear. You could do that, especially if you really work on your rules, following good trades. You could do that all day, every day. Maybe not all day, every day, but you know what I mean? You could end up with a 10% account growth if you were looking for 4 trades a month that gave you a 2.5-to-1 risk to reward. Now, of course, you have to build to the 100K account first before 4 2.5-to-1 risk to reward trades is going to make you $10,000 a month. But if you follow the same trader's journey that I explained at the start of this video, you can and you will get there. You can follow the same idea to get from 1,000 to 10,000, then 10,000 to 50,000, then 50,000 to 100 to cashing out. It's all achievable, right? So I hope you see that the biggest obstacle here is yourself, as you're believing that you should be further than you are because of false stories that you've been told. You see what I mean? You're not failing, you're actually just early in your journey. And this is why more traders feel left behind, like they're not good enough. You're comparing your chapter 2 in the journey to someone else's chapter 12. You're somewhere in the typical trader's journey timeline and you just don't know it. And because of that, you're putting pressure on yourself that shouldn't be there. All right, so let's go through the phases of the trader's journey. Phase 1 is the entry phase. This was my $100 into Bitcoin phase. Okay, this is where basically everybody starts. Now, phase 2 is the overconfidence phase. If you remember from my story, this was the phase where I went from 400 in altcoins into the 4,000. It's the beginner's luck phase where it's enough to just rope you in. And then you know what happens after that? We go into phase 3, which is the reality check. So this is the phase where whatever you've made, you give it all back. This was my $1,000 and then basically I blew that. So that probably happens to everyone. That's phase 3. And that usually kicks you into phase 4. Now, phase 4 is the phase where you decide that you're going to learn this properly, right? Because you've had a little bit of luck here, then you've seen that it can go the other way, and now you're like, I actually want to learn this. I want to learn risk. I want to learn the systems. I want to deal with my psychology. This one here, this was my $1,000 to $10,000 phase. Now, phase 5 is consistency, and you're only going to get from 1,000 to 10,000 if you are consistent. And so phase 5 was my 10,000 to 50,000, right? That was the biggest one. And that's going to push you into the next phase, which is the scaling phase. And so this was the phase where I scaled up from the 50 to the 100K. So added in cash at that point in time, but it was only once I knew that my system was strong, my discipline was strong, my mind was strong, I was able to scale up my account, and you'll be able to do that eventually too. And the reason why you want to do that is because that is going to push you into the final phase, which is phase 7. And that phase is the financial freedom phase. This is when you can stop compounding and you can start cashing out. And this is the one that we all aim to get to. And it's the reason why we get in this in the first place. So ask yourself, of that whole journey, where are you right now? What is your next step? Because that's all that matters. Where you are now to where you want to be is somewhere in these phases, and you just have to be realistic with yourself and look forward to what's coming next, as long as you learn the lessons along the way. So every time you feel like quitting, remember this: what you're building right now is a skill that can pay you for life. Most people will never make it, not because they can't, but because they give up too early. So no, you're not too late. You're not behind, and you don't need to make $1 million next month. You just need to master the process. And if you do that slowly, patiently, consistently, you can live free. You can live well, and you can win. Now, if this video helped you in any way, comment below and tell me which phase you think you are in right now. And let's normalize the real trader journey and stop pretending that it's something that it's not. Oh, and one more thing. Many of you commented on the teacup in my video last time. Now, I'm not saying there's another Easter egg in the video this week, but I'm also not saying there isn't either.